walked into the house expecting Wyatt to be sitting on the rug, spinning his favorite yellow toy. The first thing I noticed was silence. No clattering sounds, no soft humming. The wheelchair wasn't near the sofa. His blanket wasn't on the floor. His snack bowl was gone. I looked around, already feeling my chest tighten. I called out, "Colby?" He was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling his phone. Calm, casual, like nothing had happened. I asked him where Wyatt was. He looked up slowly and said, "I sold him." I stared at him, thinking I misheard. "What?" He repeated it, word for word. "I sold him. He was just a burden anyway. Now we can have a normal life." I dropped the grocery bag in my hand. Apples scattered across the floor. "You what?" He stood and shrugged like it was nothing. "You work double shifts to take care of a kid who doesn't talk, doesn't move right, and drains every cent we have. I handled it. You should be thanking me." My legs nearly gave out. I looked toward the hallway, thinking maybe Wyatt had just crawled into a corner to nap. My fingers started shaking. I turned to run toward his room, but then I saw her, Mara, his mother. Leaning against the wall, arms crossed, smirking like she'd just watched a successful business deal go through. She said, "He's better off. You both are." My vision blurred. My mouth was open, but no words came out. I reached for my phone. Gone. My purse was missing. The car keys were gone too. Then I heard a small click from the hallway closet. The door creaked open, and Kieran stepped out holding his little blue tablet to his chest. His hair was messy. His face looked scared but determined. He looked at Colby and said, "Daddy, should I tell Mommy what you did to Sister too?" Mara flinched. Colby froze. Everything in the house went still. Kieran didn't move. He just looked at me, his hands gripping the tablet tighter. And in that exact moment, I realized Wyatt wasn't the only child in danger. And I wasn't the only one in the house who had been watching. My name is Tessa Moreland. I'm 34 years old, and for the last 7 years, I've been keeping my family together with duct tape and prayer. Before everything fell apart, we lived in a modest 2-bedroom home just outside Fort Wayne, Indiana. Beige siding, rust on the mailbox, and a sagging porch swing that never got fixed. It wasn't much, but I made it feel safe. Or at least I thought I did. I met Colby when I was 23. He was charismatic, quick with compliments, the kind of man who made you feel like you were the only person in the room. I'd just lost my father, and Colby filled the silence that followed. We got married within a year. At first, life felt like a fresh start. He cooked dinner, played guitar, and talked about starting his own landscaping business. But the moment Wyatt was born, everything changed. Wyatt came into the world small and quiet. He had developmental delays the doctors didn't fully understand at first. By the time he turned 2, he'd been diagnosed with autism and a rare muscular condition that limited his mobility. He never said mama, never pointed to show me anything, but he would hold my fingers tight. He would squeal with joy when I played soft music or tap the floor gently with his toy cars in perfect rhythm. He was beautiful. He still is. Colby didn't see beauty. He saw work. He started calling Wyatt that kid instead of his name. He stopped sleeping in our room and moved to the couch, saying he needed space. He quit 3 different jobs in 1 year. Each time I picked up extra shifts at the hospital to cover the bills. I'd come home with sore feet only to find dirty dishes, Wyatt still in the same diaper I left him in, and Colby playing video games with the volume up so loud Wyatt had to cover his ears and scream. I told myself it was a phase, that he was overwhelmed, that maybe he just didn't know how to cope. I tried counseling. He went once, said the therapist was just another idiot trying to blame the man. He never went back. Kieran was born 2 years after Wyatt, and it was like Colby had been waiting for a normal child. He carried Kieran around like a trophy. "That's my boy," he'd say in public, patting his head. But in private, he barely spoke to either child. If Wyatt cried, he yelled. If Kieran asked questions, he told him to be quiet and let adults talk. When Junie was born, he didn't come to the hospital. He said the car battery died, but I knew he just didn't care. I brought her home alone, holding her in one arm and Wyatt's bag in the other, while Colby sat watching football. By then, his mother had moved in with us. Mara, cold, judgmental, and always whispering that women like me should have stopped having children. She called Wyatt damaged. She told Kieran that I was weak. She said Junie looked too soft to survive in this world. I wanted to throw her out, but we needed her help. Or at least I thought we did. She watched the kids while I worked overnight shifts, and some days that was the only way I could pay for Wyatt's physical therapy. I didn't know what she was saying behind my back. I didn't know how often she whispered to Colby, fueling his resentment. She once told me, "Men have needs and no man wants to come home to diapers and tantrums." She said it while folding Wyatt's laundry. I kept my head down and kept moving. I saved every spare dollar. I clipped coupons. I used a fake smile so well that even my coworkers thought I had it all under control. But behind closed doors, I cried quietly in the bathroom at 3 a.m. so the kids wouldn't hear. My chest hurt from the anxiety. My fingers trembled when I filled out forms because I never knew what emergency would come next. A broken wheelchair? A missed therapy bill? A late rent notice? I lived in survival mode, hoping things would settle, praying that one day Colby would see the value in the life we had. But something shifted a few months before everything collapsed. Colby started going out at night saying he was meeting up with guys to discuss a new job. He'd come back smelling like cigarettes and whiskey, and Mara always covered for him. When I asked, she said, "He's networking." Let him breathe. You've smothered him enough. One night, I overheard Colby on the phone in the garage. I couldn't make out the full conversation, but I heard one phrase that burned into my brain. "We can't keep all three. She's not going to notice if one's gone." I didn't know what it meant at the time. I thought maybe he was talking about rehoming Wyatt to a facility. That was Mara's idea. She'd brought it up more than once, saying he needed real care and that we should think about the rest of the family. I refused every time. I should have pushed harder. I should have asked more questions. But I was exhausted. I was working 16-hour days, sleeping on a fold-out mattress beside Wyatt's crib so I could massage his legs at night when they cramped. The morning everything happened, I kissed Wyatt on the forehead and told him he was my favorite superhero. He grinned and waved his fingers. I didn't know it would be the last time I saw that smile. When I came home that evening, the world I'd been barely holding together cracked open, and I fell straight through. The moment I stepped through the front door that night, I knew something was wrong. The house was too quiet. Not the kind of quiet that comes from kids finally napping or the TV being turned off. It was the kind of silence that presses into your ears and makes your skin prickle. Wyatt's wheelchair wasn't near the couch like it usually was. His toy, his favorite yellow spinning top, wasn't on the rug. There were no crumbs, no cartoons playing, no half-finished juice boxes on the counter. The house had been cleaned, but not by me. It was scrubbed in a way that felt sterile and unnatural, as if someone had erased all signs that Wyatt had ever lived here. I dropped the grocery bag on the floor and called out, "Wyatt!" Nothing. "Kieran? Junie?" Still nothing. Then Colby's voice came from the kitchen. Calm, flat. "They're fine." I walked in and saw him sitting at the table, drinking a beer like it was any other evening. His phone was in his hand, and he didn't even look up when he spoke again. "He's gone." My chest tightened. "Gone where?" He finally glanced up, his eyes cold. "Wyatt. I sold him." My knees nearly buckled. "You what?" "I sold him. To people who can handle kids like him. You said it yourself. We're drowning. This fixes it." I couldn't breathe. My hands started shaking. "You sold our son? You think this fixes anything?" Colby stood up and walked around the table slowly. "He was a burden. You spend every minute trying to fix him. The rest of us get nothing. You call that a life?" I reached for my phone, but it wasn't in my bag. My purse was gone. My car keys, too. Panic hit hard and fast. "Where's my phone?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I took it. I didn't want you overreacting." Overreacting. He had sold our child, and I was supposed to stay calm. I started backing away toward the hallway when I saw Mara standing at the end of it, arms crossed, her mouth twisted in that familiar, disapproving smirk. "He's better off," she said, "and now you can focus on the children who matter." "You knew?" I whispered. Mara stepped forward slowly. "I encouraged it. You were destroying this family with your obsession over that boy." I looked past her toward the bedrooms. I needed to get to Kieran and Junie, but my legs felt like stone. I had no phone, No car, and I didn't know if they were even still in the house. Then I heard it. A small click. The hallway closet door creaked open, and Kieran stepped out. He clutched his blue tablet to his chest, barefoot, pajamas wrinkled. His voice trembled, but he looked directly at his father. "Daddy," he said, "should I tell Mommy what you did to Sister too?" The air went still. Mara's face dropped. Colby turned white. "What did you say?" Colby asked, his voice suddenly sharp. Kieran didn't flinch. He just hugged the tablet tighter. I moved quickly and stepped between them, backing Kieran into the corner behind me. "Go to your room," I said to him softly. "Lock the door." Colby moved toward us, but I shouted, "Don't touch him!" He stopped. His hand curled into a fist, then dropped to his side. I could see the calculation in his eyes. He was weighing whether he could talk his way out of this or control it like he had everything else. I turned to Mara. "Where is Junie?" She said nothing. Her arms were still crossed, but her eyes flicked away from mine. "Where is my daughter?" I shouted. Colby stepped forward again, voice raised. "You need to calm down." "Number, you need to tell me what you did." Kieran's voice came again from behind me. He took her to the garage. He had a big bag. I saw him close the trunk. Then he came back inside and told Grandma it was done. I turned to Colby. "What did you do to her?" He didn't answer. I looked at Mara. "Is she alive?" Mara's face cracked for the first time. "You don't understand." "I do understand," I snapped. "You helped him." Colby reached into his pocket, but I didn't wait. I grabbed a kitchen knife from the counter and pointed it between us. "Don't." I swear to God, he froze. The room was silent except for Kieran's quiet breathing behind me. I backed us into the hallway toward the bedrooms, my eyes never leaving them. I locked Kieran and myself inside his room, shoved a chair under the doorknob, and sat down on the floor with him. "I need your help," I whispered. "Do you still have that recording app on your tablet?" Kieran nodded and opened it. I looked at him, this small boy who had seen too much and stayed quiet for too long. "Tell me everything you remember. Everything you saw." He started talking, voice steady and clear. He told me what he heard through the walls, the bags, the lies, the way Junie cried and how she suddenly stopped. I recorded it all, every word. Then I texted 911 from the emergency app he had hidden behind a math game. Domestic hostage, 3 children, 1 missing, house not safe. It would take minutes, maybe longer. But I wasn't going to wait for them to come to me. If my children were going to survive, I had to be the one to act first. I sat with my back pressed against the door, listening to Colby pacing on the other side. Kieran was curled up in my lap, gripping the tablet. I couldn't cry. I couldn't scream. I had to stay clear, sharp, and quiet. We had no car, no phone line, no neighbors within shouting distance. But we did have his tablet, and I had what he gave me. His voice, his memory, and something even more powerful, his courage. I whispered, "You're doing amazing, baby. I'm going to need you to keep being brave, okay?" Kieran nodded. I took a deep breath and opened the emergency text app. It was buried behind a decoy game called Number Maze. I downloaded it months ago when one of my coworkers told me about stealth safety tools for domestic violence victims. I never thought I'd actually use it. I typed slowly with trembling fingers. Urgent. Hostile domestic. 3 children involved. 1 child missing. Locked in child's bedroom. Address. 308 Glenmore Avenue. Suspect armed and unstable. The screen showed message sent. I stared at it for 3 seconds, then deleted it from the sent folder. "Now we wait," I told Kieran. "But I need you to help me with something else." He sat up straighter. "What?" "I need you to tell me exactly what you saw. Everything. From the beginning." He opened the voice memo app and hit record. "He said Junie cried too much," Kieran began. "He said she was too loud and he was tired of her always needing things." I fought the tightening in my throat. My hand stayed on his back. "He told Grandma he was going to take her to the quiet place." I didn't know what that meant, but he put her in a big black bag. I saw her blanket inside it. My heart slammed against my ribs. "What else?" I asked. "He went to the garage. He stayed in there a long time. I heard the freezer open. I heard him cry, like really cry, the loud kind. Then he came back inside and told Grandma it was done." The world narrowed to one sound. the soft tick of the ceiling fan above us. I felt cold all over. Then he added something that made my stomach twist. Grandma said, "Good. Now, we can get rid of the others too, while we have the chance." I closed my eyes. They hadn't just gotten rid of Wyatt. They had a plan for all of them. Maybe even me. Junie hadn't been taken anywhere. She hadn't been sold. She was still here. Somewhere. I pressed stop on the recording and saved the file under the name School Project. I backed it up to my work email using the Wi-Fi Colby forgot to shut off. Another message popped up. Officers dispatched. ETA 4 minutes. 4 minutes. But we didn't have 4 minutes. I heard Colby open the garage door again. He was searching, maybe for Junie's things, maybe to hide evidence, maybe worse. I looked at Kieran. "Do you know if the attic is still unlocked?" He nodded. "It's above the hallway. I want you to run. Quiet and fast. Climb up and hide. Don't come down until someone in a uniform calls your name. Not me. Not Daddy. Just the police." He looked afraid. "What about you?" "I'm going to find your sister." He shook his head. "You can't go alone." I cupped his cheeks. "You already saved us. You were smart. You stayed quiet. You got the truth out. Now let me do the rest." He blinked fast and hugged me tight. Then I cracked the door. Colby wasn't in sight. Mara's voice came from the living room. "You need to clean up before they come looking." "They're not coming," he snapped. "She's too scared to do anything." I pushed Kieran toward the hallway. He darted out silently and disappeared into the attic pull-down without a sound. I stepped out next and crept toward the garage. The door was cracked open. Colby was kneeling near the chest freezer, sweat pouring down his back. He muttered to himself, "You're not going to ruin this." She doesn't understand. I did what I had to do. I slipped behind a stack of boxes and scanned the room. In the far corner, behind paint cans, I saw it. Junie's pink sock peeking out from under a tarp. My knees nearly buckled. I moved slowly, deliberately, stepping between shadows. Then a sharp creak betrayed me. Colby spun around. "Tessa!" He took one step forward. I raised my hands. "Don't, just stop." "Where's Kieran?" "Safe." "You think you're going to fix this?" He snarled. Number I already did. Outside, red and blue lights danced against the walls. Sirens grew louder. Tires screeched. Colby lunged, but I grabbed the snow shovel from the wall and swung it hard. It hit his shoulder, knocking him to the ground. I screamed, "Junie!" A soft cry came from under the tarp. 2 officers kicked in the side door seconds later. Guns drawn. Shouts filled the garage. I dropped the shovel and pointed. "She's over there. He tried to hide her." They handcuffed Colby, shouting commands. Another officer pulled Junie out gently, bundled in her blanket, shivering but alive. I stood frozen until one of the medics placed her in my arms. She was breathing. Her fingers closed around mine. I held Junie against my chest while the medics checked her over. Her eyes were wide, blinking slowly, but she didn't cry. She just looked at me like she didn't know if I was real. I whispered to her again and again, "You're safe now. Mommy's here." She kept her fingers wrapped around my shirt. She wouldn't let go. The police escorted me and the kids outside while a second wave of officers and forensics moved into the house. Yellow tape went up across the porch. Neighbors had come out onto their lawns, mouths covered in shock. No one had ever knocked on our door when they heard us fighting. But now that the sirens were blaring and the flashing lights bounced off the siding, they couldn't look away. I saw Mara in handcuffs near the patrol car, shouting at the officers, "This is a mistake! She's making all this up!" One of the officers calmly told her they had a recorded statement from a child witness and evidence from inside the freezer. She kept yelling until they shut the door and drove her away. Colby was in another cruiser, staring out the window. His jaw was clenched, his hands behind his back. He didn't say a word when they walked him past me. He looked straight through me like I didn't exist. That didn't matter anymore. His silence couldn't undo what he did, and it wouldn't save him from what was coming. Kieran came down from the attic an hour later. One of the female officers brought him out with a blanket wrapped around his shoulders and a juice box in his hand. He saw Junie in my arms and ran to us. I knelt down and pulled them both in close. All 3 of us held onto each other like we were trying to glue the pieces of our lives back together. At the station, I handed over the recordings from Kieran's tablet. He had captured every conversation, every sound, every word his father and grandmother had spoken behind closed doors. The audio was clear. You could hear Colby say, "She's not going to notice if one's gone." You could hear Mara reply, "Better now than later." Clean break. When the lead detective finished listening, he looked at me and said, "This is going to put them away for a long time." That night, we were placed in protective housing, a safe house run by women who didn't need explanations. They handed me clean clothes, tucked my children into warm beds, and sat with me while I filed statements. Every word felt like ripping open a wound, but I kept going, because if I stopped, I'd fall apart. 3 days later, Wyatt was found. He had been dropped off at a private care facility across state lines. No records, no legal paperwork, just a forged signature and a cash donation. He had been registered under a false name. The only reason they connected him back to me was because one of the nurses recognized him from a missing child alert I had begged the police to circulate. I flew there with a social worker. When I walked into the room and saw him sitting in a chair by the window, staring at the sunlight, I collapsed. He looked up at the sound of my sobbing. For a moment, he didn't react. Then he reached out his hand and tapped the air, his sign for music. I began to hum his favorite lullaby. He smiled. He was thinner, bruised, but alive. I brought him home the next day. The social worker said it would take time to rebuild trust, but Wyatt didn't need time. The moment he saw Kieran, he let out a sound we hadn't heard in months, a laugh. They held hands in the back seat while we drove away from the facility. The trial began 4 months later. It was brutal. Colby's lawyer tried to claim mental instability. Mara cried on the stand, pretending she had no idea what her son had done. But the evidence from Kieran's tablet was airtight. The judge listened to the recordings. He heard their voices. He saw the photos of the freezer. He read the nurse's statement from the facility where Wyatt had been hidden. Kieran testified with a child advocate by his side. He wore a little blue blazer and sat up straight in the witness chair. When asked why he had recorded everything, he said, "Because I knew no one would believe Mommy without proof." The courtroom went silent. Colby was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Mara received 25 years for aiding and abetting child trafficking and child endangerment. I didn't cheer. I didn't cry. I just held my children and let them watch their abusers be led away. After the trial, the district attorney approached me. "You did everything right," he said. "You protected your kids. You gave us what we needed to stop them." I looked down at Wyatt, who was spinning his toy in my lap, then at Junie, asleep on my shoulder, then at Kieran, who had gone back to his drawing pad, quietly sketching superheroes. "No," I told him. "He stopped them. I just listened." 6 months later, our house was sold. The porch swing was gone. The siding had been repainted by the new owners. I never went back after the closing. The realtor asked if I wanted to pick up the mailbox key. I told her to throw it away. We live in a small 2-bedroom apartment now. It's not fancy. The furniture is secondhand and the walls are covered in crayon drawings. But the locks work, and the windows open, and nobody raises their voice. Most mornings start with music from Wyatt's tablet and the sound of Junie trying to sing along in her soft, sleepy voice. Wyatt is in full-time therapy now. He has a new pediatrician, a new wheelchair, and a therapist who comes twice a week. He still doesn't speak, but his eyes have started to follow mine again. Sometimes he smiles for no reason at all. That smile is the clearest sign I've ever received that healing is possible. Kieran started 3rd grade this fall. His teacher called me after the first week to tell me he helped another child who was having a panic attack. She said he held the boy's hand and told him, "It's okay. Grown-ups are listening now." She didn't know what it meant. I did. Junie still wakes up crying some nights. She has night terrors, but she always crawls into my bed and wraps her arms around my waist. Her grip loosens after a while. That's when I know she's safe enough to fall asleep. I went back to work at the hospital last month, just part-time, not because I have to, but because I want to. I missed helping people. I missed using my strength for something beyond survival. I also joined a support group for mothers of children with special needs. I speak more now. I don't shrink. I don't say, "I'm fine," when I'm not. During one meeting, another mother asked me how I managed to leave. She said her husband didn't hit her, but made her feel worthless. She said she didn't think that was enough of a reason. I looked at her and said, "The second your child looks at you and asks if this is normal, you'll know it's not." That night, I came home and created a private online support group. I called it Voices in the Closet because that's where Kieran found the courage to speak. I didn't want his voice to be forgotten or buried in court documents. I wanted it to light the way for other children, other parents, anyone stuck behind closed doors waiting for someone to believe them. The group grew fast. Within 3 weeks, I had over 200 messages from women in different states. Some just wanted to tell their story. Some wanted help getting out. Some just wanted to be heard. I replied to every single one. Not because I had the answers, but because I knew what it felt like to scream in silence. Colby's sentencing made national headlines. So did Mara's arrest. But what the news didn't show was the strength it took to wake up the next day and pack school lunches. What they didn't write about was how a 7-year-old boy, scared and hiding in a closet, chose to tell the truth when no one else would. Sometimes I replay that moment in my head, the sound of his voice steady and clear. "Daddy, should I tell Mommy what you did to Sister too?" He didn't cry. He didn't beg. He didn't hide behind me. He stood there and told the truth. That's the moment everything changed. Not the police sirens, not the courtroom, not the sentencing. It was that moment. A boy with nothing but a tablet and his voice. That's where our freedom began. Today, our home feels different. We still have hard days. There are still flashbacks and therapy appointments and sudden breakdowns triggered by a sound or a smell. But we talk now. We tell the truth. We don't hide. I don't keep secrets to protect people who hurt us. I don't smile to make others comfortable. I don't ask for permission to be believed. The biggest lesson I learned is this. Monsters don't always come with warnings. Sometimes they wear wedding rings. Sometimes they stand in your kitchen and tell you they love you while they plan your destruction. But love doesn't look like fear. It never did. And now my children will grow up knowing the difference. One morning, I found a note on the fridge. It was written in crayon and taped beside Kieran's newest drawing of a superhero family. It said, "Mommy is the strongest person I know, and Wyatt is the bravest." I left it there. I don't plan to take it down, because that's what this story is really about. Not the betrayal, not the trauma, not even the justice. It's about the children who tell the truth before anyone else dares to, and the mothers who choose to believe them. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of someone who needs to be heard, or if it gave you the strength to believe in your own voice, please like this video. Share it with someone who might need it. Comment below and tell us what part of the story stayed with you the most. Your words matter. And if you believe in stories that reveal truth, protect the innocent, and expose hidden betrayal, subscribe to the channel. We tell real stories for those who don't always get to speak. Thank you for watching. Stay safe. Stay strong, and never stop listening to the quietest voices.